Hi, everybody. So I don't have a whole lot planned today. I thought I would just take your questions. We've been talking about purpose and lots of things, and we have some things we can talk about in that regard. So Jan, I know you've got questions.
I missed the one about purpose. I wasn't on that one.
Yeah.
But a client of mine was, and he asked me to do hypnotherapy with him the next time he came in to do that whole what is my purpose thing. So thank you.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good. Ashley Ann, do you have any comments about last time or anything you've been thinking about?
Yeah, so last week I was expecting to, take some time, explore some past lives, do all that fun stuff. And I didn't get to that. But what I did do was I did my values list. And it was interesting because I'd seen some patterns I hadn't seen before of self-sabotage that I've been doing this year.
Uh-oh. That's interesting. Anything else that was revealed when you did the values?
For me, it was just interesting because I had seen how I haven't really let myself really enjoy the things that were on my value list.
Right. Yeah, isn't that funny how, something that's really important to us, something we really want to do or have or experience or something, and then we just don't get around to it. Those are good revelations. So are you correcting that? Are you?
Yeah, I'm working on that. So
Exactly. So as people come in, I just want to say welcome to everybody. Thank you for joining me again this week, and some new faces. Hi, Karen.
Hi.
Hi. Hi, Deb, all the way over there in Wales. So nice of you to join us.
Hi, Mary.
I know it's nighttime over there for you, and my lovely assistant Anna in Mexico, where we're always jealous, except for now it's probably a lot hotter than comfortable, huh? So, and Jan and Ashley Ann, thank you. And thank you for anybody who's watching on Facebook. I'm Mary Lee LeBay. I'm a hypnotherapist and teacher of hypnotherapy and past life regression. And we just meet up weekly so that we can discuss various things and be there to support each other in our growth and learning. So we have been talking about purpose, and anything else that's come up for anybody over in the things that you've been working on?
I was thinking about the comment about not focusing on your values a moment ago, and I was realizing that that I think that like the work ethic that I was brought up with is like I have to interrupt that sort of, if I do this, then I can do that. Like I have to do all these work things in order to do the thing I value. And that includes even rest. And so it's hard it's so deeply programmed. It's a difficult one to realize. I was just reading actually a book that made me think about it in a different way when the person was describing that same situation.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah. Yeah, and I have a little of that too. Maybe not quite so much, but a lot of loyalty to getting all my work done and all of that. And, sometimes feeling a little too serious and work oriented. But that's interesting. What could you do you think, that could start changing that? I mean, other than hypnotherapy. So that's
I think the self-validating myself that I deserve to rest that I deserve to do the things that I want to do. Some sort of validation. I haven't hit on the right one because I want to make sure that I tune it to a good um, concise, non-self-defeating.
Well, something like rest, rest has a value of its own, doesn't it? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just a luxury, like I want to go to the amusement park and I need to get some chores done first. But rest is actually, something that we have to have. So, would that idea change your idea around rest, for instance? That it's just as important as brushing your teeth or eating dinner or any of those other things?
Oh, I think so. I think that my body's not giving me a choice now, and that's so it's and I didn't think I'd get to that point. So I'm like, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. We get to a we get to a certain age and our body starts screaming.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, as you all know, I had hip replacement surgery 4 weeks ago now. I've completed
Ah,
recovery and I've still had a lot of pain. And this morning, one of my former students, one of my graduates, did some hypnotherapy on me. And so far, the pain has really shifted. So that's been kind of fun to, have those techniques worked on me and get those results as well. So, but back to the point of our bodies finally just saying, enough is enough in whatever topic it's trying to talk to us about.
yeah.
Uh, but yeah, rest. A lot of people that I talk to have that they think they just need to go, go, go all the time. And if they're not doing then they're not valuable, or, if they're not producing and getting something done, then it's tied to self-worth. And, again, that's a connection that needs to be broken because you're valuable no matter what. I mean, well, I mean, I was going to say Stephen Hawking's, who couldn't he couldn't move around. He had to sit in a wheelchair, although he was still productive. So, um, so maybe that's not the best example, but um, yeah, just finding that core worthiness, that it's okay to do what you want to do and what's important to you. Did anybody else come up with things over the weekend or over the week since our last call? Jan.
I always want to go way out there, Mary Lee. So I wanted to know if you'd be willing at some point to talk about how angels manifest on earth, because I have a client that drove her car off a dock, and when she hit the water, she was thrown into the back of the vehicle, and she started praying for help, and a hand grabbed her hand and pulled her hand to the doorknob on the door and said, "Open the door." And she said, "But I don't know which way to go." And they just said, "Open the door, you will find your way." And she's like, "Was that an angel? Was it a mermaid?" And so I know you know more about this than I do. And I think it was an angel. That's all I said.
I wouldn't know if it's an angel, because an angel actually refers to a specific race of entity that is from the celestial realms.
Okay.
And so most of the helpers that we have would not be classified as angels. But it could be, we wouldn't know unless you could hypnotize her.
I wanted to, but she didn't want to know. She was scared. I don't know why she would be scared of this being that helped her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe just afraid that she'd have to go back through that traumatic experience or something.
Right. Yeah.
But I've witnessed, I've had experiences of interventions. And it's, you said angel manifesting here on the physical plane. It's not necessarily manifesting. I mean, like, they don't necessarily come into a physical form, but have enough influence in that moment to either, have a physical response or a message strong enough. I mean, I've
Because
had a lot of that.
you've heard about people showing up during an accident to lift a car off of somebody and then they're gone.
Yeah.
I mean, what is that?
Yeah. I've seen films on YouTube of really strange things. And I think it's totally possible.
Okay.
I mean, I had a situation myself where I was, I was driving along on what we might call a country road, kind of out, up near Snoqualmie, just, I'd say a country road, right? And there was a car ahead of me, and they turned, and then I turned behind them, and I was following a decent thing, space, but we were only going, when you turn, what, 20 miles an hour, 25 miles an hour or something. And she slammed on her brakes and I slammed on my brakes, but my car was moving at a speed that it was just like, okay, I'm going to rear end this woman because I couldn't get it to stop fast enough. I was just, screeching my brakes, but sliding right into her. And my car stopped about an inch from her car. And she jumped out and she looked at me and she goes, "I thought you hit me." And I said, "I thought I did too." And we both looked and we weren't even touching, but we both had that same experience.
Wow.
It turned out that a dog had run in front of her. And so she just slammed on the brakes to avoid killing the dog or hitting the dog.
Yeah.
It all just happened so fast, but there was no other explanation. There was no way that my car came. It was like, in that case, I would say that it was an aspect change. So, this is real advanced stuff, kids. So we're on a timeline, right? We're on a film strip of time in chronological time. But as we know, the new physics scientists have shown us that there are parallel universes or, parallel timelines. And in that moment, it probably was some type of intervention, but instead of, you know, maybe seeing an angel stand between us and keep us from hitting or something, it was more like they shifted us onto a timeline that is just right here, real close, but it was enough that we missed each other by a couple of inches.
Wow.
I mean, she didn't move her car and I didn't back
You
up.
should have hit her. You should have.
It was, I mean, I actually kind of saw my car going into her, but when it all stopped, we were a couple inches apart.
What
And
a
no,
trip.
it was cool because I love having those personal experiences.
Right. Yeah.
It was like, I'm glad it didn't turn out poorly, but
Mhm.
then, it's not like, oh, it's just a story I've heard or something I've seen on YouTube that could have been altered. No, I've really had this experience.
Mhm.
I have another client who said she went through an intersection. Somebody was going through the intersection at the same time. She said they totally should have hit the back of my car and nothing. They totally missed. And it was going to be a T-bone. I've seen and heard about a lot of these types of things and it just switches. But it's the same thing that happens when you hear about miracle healings, like in charismatic churches where they do the healing. It's not particularly that the person in that time space has, suddenly, can walk or something, but the faith, and that's the benefit of having that kind of faith. The faith of that healing is so strong that they can actually shift the aspect to the aspect where that person has been healed or is no longer sick, right? So that would be the explanation. That's
Any side effects from that? Like you're actually shifting the whole experience of being this human in this moment into another film strip over here. I mean, are there any like side effects, long-term side effects for that?
Well, the long-term side effect is now you're on a different trajectory. So, I
Does
mean,
your past change? Your past changes? Ah, okay.
well, slightly. I mean, it's only like in the potential car accident that I had.
Mhm.
My future is slightly changed. Obviously, I didn't get cited. I'm not going to court. I didn't have expensive damage. You know, I mean, look at the future of that. Then, you know, markings on my license. I mean, those are just simple ones, but then it means that if I'm showing up in court, you know, so on a given day, instead of doing my normal life, I'm over here in court.
Mhm.
Everything is a little different, isn't it?
Right? That means you didn't have a client. If you'd gone to court, you wouldn't have that client that day that you end up having. Yeah.
Or, you
In
know,
somebody or doing something. Yeah.
right, you were going to go buy a lottery ticket and then you didn't. So then you
Right.
didn't win, right? Or whatever. I mean, a lot of things could change.
Yeah.
And so yeah, you're moving just a little bit, but it could have some significant repercussions.
And I remember the first time you told me about this time thing. And it's
Uh-huh.
hard to get your mind around it. It really is hard to think that we are existing in other realms at all times, you know, and we can actually shift over here, or shift over there.
Yeah.
It kind of blows my mind still.
Well, it's sort of an explanation between fate and free will.
Mhm.
So fate is if you're on your timeline and you do nothing different, right? And nothing shifts, you're just going to play out the film strip
Mhm.
the way it's going to go, right?
Yeah.
But if you make radical changes, and it's not just, you know, am I going to wear pink instead of blue today or something, but you make a radical change where you're changing your character,
Mhm.
you can actually move yourself over onto this other aspect field. And then that future will change by design. And then, of course, the past will slightly be altered as well. I do some of that work in hypnotherapy, not all the time and not without some, you know, you have to, oh, I've got workers. If you see people walking around, you know, I was thinking I was going to go in the other room and then I thought, well, the lighting is better, but I forgot they'll be walking around here.
Okay.
They're painting our deck. But anyway, so you have to be very judicial in how you apply that if you're going to consciously make those shifts. But we can do a lot of, we can make a lot of changes in health and trauma, you know, some like even in past lives, we can go in and we can shift how those past lives played out or how we responded to them. And then by shifting it there, it ends up shifting it here as well.
Tell us about future pacing.
Future pacing, I have to take this off. I
Yeah.
was fully a minute ago and now I'm like roasting. Future pacing, why?
Well, because you're talking about how you shift by
Yeah.
traveling around. But what I do in my hypnotherapy sessions, I find that future pacing where I take somebody into the future where they've achieved their goal of A, B, or C, and they step into them
Yeah,
and they feel the energy of having lost that weight or quit smoking or whatever it is. And I just find that so valuable in my work.
yeah.
That's the best tool I have, I think.
Wow.
One of
Well,
them.
yeah, it's one of the best for cleaning up at the end, you know, like
Yeah.
sealing off all the other good work that you're doing. So with future pacing at the end of a session, when you've done the healing and everything, it's a technique that we use that implants the new learning at different points along the future timeline. So what is that going to look like in a day, in a week, a month, 3 months, something like that? And how I see it is it like puts a bubble of energy in that location. So as they're moving along the timeline, they hit that bubble and they're like, oh, you know, it's just like reminding them, or as they're looking out you know, from here to say a week or a month from now, they can have that good feeling like, oh, if I just keep at this, then I'm going to have that goal, and that energy for that goal is sitting out there waiting for them.
And they can feel it. They feel that energy of having successfully achieved their goal.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and they're imagining it too. So they're really building out and anchoring, solidifying that vision for themselves. And so, you know, bringing that into, you know, bringing it into focus, and then having those goals that they're
Mhm.
striving for and achieving each time too.
Mhm.
So yeah, yeah. I knew you'd have some good
I
questions.
could talk all day to you. You know that. I'll let other people ask questions.
Well, okay. So, does anybody else have questions?
I don't have a question, but you finally answered a question that my husband and I have had for years.
Oh,
When you talk about the timeline, we were traveling on a highway, and suddenly in our headlights, there were 5 deer overlapping tail to head right across the highway. They were just reaching the other side, and he didn't have time to stop. And all of a sudden, we were on the other side of them, and we looked back, and the last one was just getting to the highway. So they were still across the highway, and we could never, ever figure that out. I said, how did you do that? I have no idea. He said, I knew I was going to hit. So I just aimed for where there would be maybe the least damage to us. And then we were just on the other side of them. We went right through them.
I love it. I've got chills.
Yeah, I do still remembering it. And it was like, and I never figured that out. Now you gave me an answer.
Yeah, that is really amazing. I have hit 3 deer in my life, and it's huge damage. And I have one that I avoided, and that was an intervention as well, because you know the deer head right to the headlights. You
Yeah.
know, if they see the headlights, they right there. And in my case, we were on a country road, and it was just winding around, and we came up over a hill and around a corner, and a huge
And they're just there. Yeah.
in the other lane, but walking towards us. And it was weird because as we passed him, his head looked towards the dark. He just looked away from us and let us pass. And later, my guide told me, he said, do you know how much energy it took me to try to get him to look in the other direction? To turn him slow down, slow down. And I was like, oh, I'm just tired. I want to get home. You know, I was just being too impatient to slow down. And then he did that. But your story is even more amazing because, you know, to get through a wall of
we were amazed. We just couldn't figure that out. He said, I knew I had no choice. We were going to hit. And I just aimed for where we'd hit the least impact.
wow.
And we never hit anything. It was just bizarre.
Oh my God.
And that's why we looked back, because we thought maybe they parted and they were still going across.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Wow. That's a good story. Yeah. That's a hard one to follow, actually.
Well, now I know what happened. We always wondered.
I would say. So in this topic, if you're interested, I have all these workers, so we're not distracted. So on this topic, a good book to read that is also in a movie form is called The Elegant Universe by, oh my God, my brain just dropped. Brian Greene, Green with an E. So The Elegant Universe, and the book is really good. Of course, books go into a lot of detail, but the movie is just fantastic because it's so professionally done, and gives you, you know, a real visual orientation. And they talk about parallel universes and wormholes and all of this amazing time space stuff. Um, and really brings it into scope for the rest of us.
To
So
look that up.
Forward to that.
Mhm.
yeah, the movie is really good. We originally purchased it on DVD, which we don't even have a DVD player anymore. But it was on PBS. So somewhere in your channel options, you should be able to find it somewhere, or on YouTube. But that's
Yeah.
a good. Okay, what other questions? Wow, you guys are really got good stories and questions today. What else?
I would like to know if you have a process for calling in for help, like calling in angels or entities, positive entities.
So, I mean, there are ways to do that, but ethically, I mean, my philosophy about it is you need to develop a really good relationship, because it's not like they're our slaves, you know, they're not our servants. And so, and this is really something that happens a lot. In fact, I just posted a blog post maybe a week ago. There's a blog post on my site somewhere that talks about when I was in um, Kenmare, Ireland, and they have a big stone circle, a beautiful stone circle, and it's, you can just walk up and hang out there and do whatever you're going to do. And on the edge of the stone circle is this big old ancient tree. And on the tree are all of these wishes and requests that people come in, and then they tie a wish to the tree, and they ask the stone circle to heal my mother and heal my child, and, you know, let me have a safe pregnancy, or, you know, whatever it is that's happening. And they're asking for all this help. And what's happening with the energy of this stone circle is that it's just being drained, because nobody's coming in and really replenishing the energy
Recharging it.
of the.
Yeah, makes sense.
And so, you know, people are asking, and I hear this all the time, Karen. Um, you know, within metaphysical circles, you know, asking the spirit guides for help, asking angels,
Yeah.
whatever it is, and just asking, or even in religious circles, you know, praying to Jesus. And it's always, what can you give me, right? um, so if, you know, the ethical way for me is always value for value. So you could offer a value. You could, you know, obviously start some type of relationship with them to begin with, where you already have a working relationship and you're doing things for each other. Um, and then those needs are just part of that, right?
Hmm.
That makes some sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, the way that we can, you know, it's hard. You can't just hand your spirit guide $100 or something, right? It's hard to
Can't bribe them.
bribe them. Is that
Can't
what you
bribe them. Yeah.
might be able to? But, you know, then if you're asking just randomly, hey, will somebody do this for me? How might that be different from making a deal with the devil, right? You never know.
Exactly.
Maybe some negative entity comes along and says, oh, she's asking for a favor. I'll grant that, but I'm going to expect something too, right?
Not good.
Yeah. So for me, it's always value for value. What can I offer in exchange? So you know, and like I said, it's not easy to make that exchange. It's not like, well, I'll cook dinner for you, you know, or something like that. So, you know, I'll leave cookies on the table at night.
I'll never do that again, whatever that is, right?
Right.
Grant me this wish, I'll stop, whatever.
I'll never be a bad person again,
Right.
ever.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so, um, so some of the things that we can do, for instance, is learning and becoming really super valuable human beings. Okay, so so the good spirits, the one, you know, we don't want to deal with the ones who are going to extract a painful price, right? We want to work with good spirits and attract them into our lives so that maybe we have a working agreement and they're kind of looking out for us and bringing good things and we're doing stuff. So one of the most powerful ways is really working on ourselves. All right. So in significant and valuable ways, changing our character and becoming more valuable human beings. And the example that I give is if you were a professor at college, who are you going to help? The student who, you know, is dragging their feet, they don't want to be in class, they don't want to do the work, they're, you know, complaining about everything. Or are you going to help the student who is coming up with new and innovative ideas about that subject and coming in and saying, oh, you know, I thought about this. What do you think? You know, and they're really engaged and they have the potential of taking that topic further or developing into a very valuable person in whatever field. You know, you can assume that that professor is going to be a lot more interested in working with that student in helping them to develop and making sure they're safe and doing well and kind of feeding them with information and learning experiences rather than the one who doesn't even really want to be there anyway. So, you know, I use that as an example because when we have spirit guides or when we're trying to attract spirit guides, we have to be the exemplary person that's going to attract the kind of spirit guide we want in our lives, right? So if you know, if you're going to shuffle along in life and learning and changing is just a little too much work and that sort of thing, you're going to end up with a kindergarten level spirit guide. There, you know, the PhD spirit guides, the really powerful ones are going to go, why would I devote my time and energy when they're not going to do anything anyway, right? So working and just struggling and, you know, plowing ahead even when it's tough, facing yourself, really being honest with who you are and the things that are maybe not quite aligned properly, just grabbing him by the horns and working on it. And believe me, we all have those things. You know, it's not like, oh, there's a couple of you out there that really need to do your work. No, we all do. We all need to be doing our work. Oh, you know what? I am not recording any of this. Okay, we'll record from here. Anyway, um, so um, working on ourselves and developing that relationship, and then we can ask for help, right? I mean, you don't have to do it that way, but it would be a different experience because who are you actually asking for help? Do you know who that is? And why, what are you expecting of them? And why should they help you? Right? So it's like just walking down the street. Like sometimes, you know, I look at the people that are panhandling at the corner, right? And they're asking for money. And then you see the shows where then they get in their beautiful car and they have all this money and nice clothes and they go to their beautiful home. And but in the daytime, they're panhandling. And I'm looking at them thinking, you know, I put 2 kids through college. I'm, you know, in all this debt. I'm struggling to, you know, keep my family alive and have everything working off. And, you know, why should I help them? I mean, in some cases, yes, I will judiciously help people that I know honestly need that, but we have to be really careful about that. You know, if you're working really hard and struggling yourself, and then there's somebody that just wants to stand there and get the handout. So in the same way, we could translate that to spirit guides. You know, they're working, they're expected to work and produce and give you a result, but you just want it to be free. You just, you know, or most people out there are just expecting that to happen, even though there's no payment, there's no value for value. So yeah, you know, I don't need to be lecturing you, but but does that help, Karen? Does that help to
A little, because I think a bigger question would be, if you're used to doing everything yourself, and then, you know, it's different when you have a friendship with a friend, and
right?
learn to sense and to form a relationship then becomes, you know, a crucial part of this. And
Mhm.
and maybe that's a better way of asking what I'm trying to get at, which is, how do you like it, how do you begin to sense, to feel that relationship? I guess I'm using words that of how I go about relationships in a regular human being fashion. So,
Sure.
and it feels very foreign to switch that, or to not to switch that to, uh, I guess I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to. I mean, other people have that sense or awareness, or see colors or auras, or, you know, I don't, so I'm just, that's the part I'm wondering about.
It is hard. It's hard when you can't tell if anybody's talking back to you,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Hey, you know, anybody hear me? So that might be a place to start, is paying attention, maybe through meditation, opening up when you ask a question, actually waiting, you know, giving it to some space and letting that response come back. And it might not be auditory. That's one of my spots. So it may come as a vision, but it may come as something that shows up in my life, right? So, and then, so if you start looking at a lot of what's happening in your life as a metaphor, then spirits around you can start using that as, you know, to convey messages. So years ago, 20 years ago or so, I had a condo with a swimming pool and nobody used the pool. So every morning I would go out like at 7 or 8 in the morning and I'd have the pool to myself and I would just look at nature and I would tell my guides, okay, you know, if you have a message, then just give it to me in nature, right? And maybe two birds would fly by, you know, and I'd go, oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Got
Um,
it.
or a cat would walk by, or, you know, I mean, anything that would just come up. Or, you know, it could be anything in nature now, but I mean, I don't know if it's not an exact example, but um, I'll get a strong sense about somebody, and maybe I haven't heard from them in 10 years, right? Or 5 years. I mean, so it's like really random, but all of a sudden they're in my mind. And within a week or so, they contact me. And this happens over and over and over again. It's not exactly the same because it's not really being conveyed through a spirit guide. It's more of how far out or how sensitive am I on the timeline of energies that are approaching me. You know what I mean? Like, oh, you know, these people are thinking about me, and then I cross whatever threshold that is, and they actually contact me. So I'm feeling it from farther out. But those kinds of sensitivities of being more aware, which, you know, the less stress we have in our lives, the less, you know, the more calm. And I think that's where meditation comes in, where um, if we're not filling our heads constantly with, I got to get this done and I have to go do this, and oh, what are they going to think about that? And oh, you know, whatever fills our minds about things. If we're a lot calmer, then we have a lot more space for that communication. Another example, just really quickly, I worked with a client years ago now, yeah, probably 8 years ago. Um, and at the beginning of the session, we get an empowerment symbol, like a gift from spirit. And her gift was a box. And when she opened it up, there was nothing there. Now, the premise was that in her session, she wanted to be able to communicate with her guides better. That's why I'm bringing it up now. So she said, I want to be able to communicate with my guide. So her gift was a box and it was just empty. And we thought, okay, we have no idea what that means. And so we went through the whole session. She met her spirit guide. We set up this communication and everything. And then she, at the very end, I said, well, how could you set up where you could have better communication, you know, in your everyday life? And the spirit guide stepped back, right? And she said, he's stepping back, he's giving me space. And I said, oh, how does that relate to the space or the empty box that you had at the beginning? And she said, exactly. That's what I needed in order to talk to my guides, is I need to have space in my life, you know, some space, some quiet, some calmness, and allow that to happen. So that would be a place to start.
Yep.
Even in my recovery now over this last month, I've had a lot of time, well, catching up on my sleep has been amazing. So dreams are better, a lot more messages, a lot more connection, and just having, you know, my days are just calmer because I'm not running here and there and busy doing errands and running all over the place. I'm just here in my chair, right here in this chair. Um, and so even that has been a huge bonus in just feeling connected, allowing messages to come in. So does that help, Karen?
Oh, that does. That does. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Those were good. Yes, Jen.
I looked up The Elegant Universe, and it's a 3-part, 3-hour miniseries on Nova and PBS.
Perfect. Perfect.
Thank you.
And it's worth it. It's a really good show.
Yeah.
Oh, have you guys seen, and talking about movies, we'll just kind of divert here. Have you seen The Octopus Teacher? My
Yes.
So
It's-
good.
I wanted
So
to,
good.
I know, I want to cry in the end.
Love that octopus.
I know.
And the man's cute too.
That doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
We were traveling in Croatia years ago, and we had a little picnic on the side of this little inlet of water, and everybody was in the water, or several people were in the water, and it seemed a little cold, and I wasn't going to go in. And finally I thought, okay, maybe I will. So I was sitting on a rock and I put my feet into the water, and immediately I felt this thing just wrap around my foot. And I just went, wah! Like this, because I had no idea. And it was an octopus, and it just went flying off. And I wish that I had been more relaxed about it. But, you know, in the moment, your
You
foot
know if it was a shark.
and
What?
something is grabbing it. You know? It feels really cool, you know, with the little suctions, and he just like this.
Aw.
Hung on
Like,
to-
hi,
yeah.
I've been waiting for you.
So I had that octopus energy connection. I had an octopus totem there for a while. So
That's awesome.
yeah, that was cool.
Mary Lee, I have to say goodbye. So bye everyone, and we'll see you next week, okay?
Okay, bye, Jan. Thanks
Bye.
for today.
Okay.
We're going to close up here in a second. Is there any other comments or questions? Ashley Ann?
I just wanted to add two things really quick. One about spirit guides. One, the explanation was really helpful because I didn't really understand why I have so many guides that keep attracting to me. And now I understand why. And the other thing that I've found personally helpful for me is when I first started learning about spirit guides, what I did is I just literally sat down and wrote a question and then just wrote back without stopping what the answer is.
Yeah,
And that helps a lot to start developing that.
Thank you. I like writing too.
yes, yeah. Like stream of consciousness, just whatever's flooding into your mind. Yeah,
Yeah.
good suggestion. Very good.
Thanks, Ashley.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that's pretty good for today. I really appreciate all of you coming and bringing your great questions. And we'll be here next week. If you have any particular topic you want to talk about, let me know in advance. And it's always interesting, always great topics that you bring up. So anyway, thank you, everybody. And